G'day guys, this week on the show I'm going to be undoing years worth of disrespect to this car. We're going to get stuck into the bodywork and we're going to get it ready for vinyl wrap. Welcome to another episode of dingeldiy. I'm dingeldiy and this here is my trusty Corolla. Now, I know last episode when we were working on this car I said that I was going to get it roadworthy, but 6-week lockdown, so where I am I pretty much got to stay home no matter what, so I can't go get the roadworthy, I can't get it registered. So even though I said I didn't want to do the vinyl wrap until it was registered, I might as well do it now that I got 6 weeks worth of time off. Before we jump into it, I'm just going to take you on a trip down memory lane and explain my love-hate relationship with vinyl and vinyl wraps. So it all began when I first bought this car off my nan, not long before I got my license. So I owned this car before I was allowed to drive it, and I did so much dumb shit to it you wouldn't believe, but I also learned a lot in the process. So when I got my license I did a few things to it, but nothing too dramatic, just wheels and a stereo and a few aesthetic things, and playing around with suspension and brakes. So I kind of gained some confidence working on cars just by doing that. So not long after, I bought my Toyota Supra off the side of the road. Now that thing was pretty neglected and the paint was obviously trashed. So I didn't have a lot of money for a respray and I had a lot of time on my hands and I was young and ambitious. So the Supra was the first car that I ever vinyl wrapped, and that was an amazing success. I mean, I had a lot of time and took a lot of time with it. I mean, I had to redo the bonnet 3 times and the roof took me forever, but in the end I eventually got it looking pretty good. Fast forward another year or so, I got sick of looking at the faded paint on the roof and the boot lid of this Corolla. Now, I'd already painted the bonnet with a roller, like roll-on blackboard paint. So remember how I said I did a lot of dumb shit to this car? That was one of them. So I figured I'll wrap the roof and the boot in matte black and get a kind of a two-tone look happening. Now, I obviously didn't have enough time or patience or respect for this car compared to what I did with the Supra. So when I wrapped the roof and the boot, it was just a nightmare. There was bubbles and creases everywhere and I couldn't be bothered peeling it off and trying again. So I just left it. And then I cut out all the air bubbles and the creases with a razor blade, like on the spot. So scratched into the paint, there's rust there now, we'll get into that later. But then to cover up all those just butcheries of vinyl wrapping attempts, I just cut out little shapes of different color vinyl and stuck them over the top to kind of hide it. And that's where that kind of two-tone kind of camouflage look came from, and it kind of stayed that way for a little while. A few months down the track, I decided to pull the plastic moldings off the sides of the doors. Now, one side was pretty good, no paint came off, and you know, I didn't really intend to wrap the whole car at that stage. But when I got to the other side of the car, it ripped off so much paint, it wasn't funny, that the only way that I knew how to fix it up was to just vinyl wrap the whole car. So that's how the camo Corolla was born. This Corolla stayed that way up until the day I sold it, and then even beyond that, and when I bought it back, it had seen better days, but it was still the camouflage vinyl wrap. Now, I sold this car to make room for my Hilux, and I was living with my parents at the time. I couldn't have 3 cars, so I had to get rid of this one. And even the Hilux got its fair share of vinyl wrap as well. Now, the main reason behind vinyl wrapping that car was because I fixed up some rust and some dents in the tailgate, and I primed it, and instead of painting it, I just vinyl wrapped it and then put a whole different design on that car. So that brings us to the present day, where I am stuck dealing with the consequences of years worth of disrespect that has been done to this car. So pulling off the vinyl was one thing, but fixing the bodywork is just a whole different ballgame. Apparently when I used to jack this car up, I would just close my eyes, throw the jack under it and go for gold. The sills on this car are probably the most molested sills you'll ever see. That's going to be the hardest thing to fix, and that's the thing I'm going to be starting with. So let's get into it. I've got this bit of steel here as a straight edge. We can see just how bad these sills are. I might have to pull the interior out as well and see if we can hammer some of this out. Otherwise we might have to get a bit more creative. We've reached a bit of a checkpoint with the car, so I've pulled off all the panels that I need to pull off, lights, everything like that. So now we can get busy with the goof off. Now that's just a graffiti adhesive remover. So I'm just going to use that to get the rest of the adhesive off. I've taped up the car so that I don't get any goof off where I don't want it, because it's pretty nasty stuff. Pulled the window out down in here so I can clean the glue out and get a good vinyl wrap in behind the window. Now you might notice I'm in a different garage, but I've moved house and there is a video coming on setting it up, but because we're in lockdown, there's some things I've got to get rid of which I can't get rid of, so once lockdown's over, I'll tidy it up and I'll show you the garage. But for now, we're ready to just rub the car down and then fill up any dents. After that, we'll hit it with some primer, sand it back again, and then wrap it. Also, a handy trick for masking is grab yourself a roll of baking paper. Now, it's cheap, cheaper than newspaper, and you get massive lengths of it, so it makes masking up a lot easier. Done as much body work as I can. I've run out of body filler, so because it's lockdown, I can't go pick some up. I've got to click and collect or get it online, so I'm going to wait for that to turn up. But where we're at is we've stripped the paint in this body line. Last time I wrapped the car, the vinyl had a hard time sticking in that gap and just bubbled out. It looked like shit, so I'm going to fill that in. Now, there were a few dents and creases in the roof because I was letting my nephew climb all over the car and he caved the roof in a bit.
Come on! Do a big one. Oh god. Alright. Archie, sit down. I'll catch you. You ready? Jump!
You would have seen me with the blowtorch heating up the sheet metal and popping it out and then cooling it down really quickly. That worked a treat. There's still a tiny bit of body filler to be done, but it's a lot better than what it was. I've got the boot lid on, and that belongs on the car, because once I pulled the stickers off, we can see here and here that the stickers were covering some dents, so fits with the theme of this car, covering up mistakes with stickers. So this is the other side, and the quarter panel's over here. If you are going to use body filler, you've got to sand back the paint and the primer, and you can only apply it to bare metal, the two-part stuff. There is blade putty which goes over the top of the primer, but that's not exactly for bulk filling, that's more for filling up pinholes. So just keep that in mind if this is something you're going to give a go yourself. But for now, I just got to wait until more body filler turns up, and then I can finish the body work. Our body filler's finally turned up, so I've got some fibre filler and some regular filler. Now the fibre filler is to fill the body line in the car first, where all this bare metal is. It took us forever to get the old paint off the bonnet, but that's finally done now. I've put some reinforcements in my strut brace, and I'd previously done that when I used to own this car and cut the bonnet to suit. So I cleaned up the cuts on that, which weren't exactly straight or parallel, so the bonnet's good now. The strut brace needs a bit more grinding on it, and then we can paint that, paint the underside of the bonnet black, paint the underside of the boot black, paint the strut brace black, move on with our body filling, and then put some primer on, and then hopefully we can vinyl wrap after that. So we're getting a bit closer now. Okay, yesterday I was having a bit of a shit one. I put way too much filler on, and then I used the electric sander to get it all off. Now that pad is flat, so it kind of didn't sand the filler away the right way, and we'll be able to see some flat spots when I primer it and vinyl wrap it. So I felt like giving up yesterday, but I've regrouped. I've got some rubber here. I've cut that into strips. You buy it in squares. It's like anti-vibration stuff you put under your washing machine, but I've cut it up. I'm going to use those as sanding blocks so that they curve to the shape of the car, and then we sand the filler off correctly. So now with that in mind, we'll put some more filler on and give it another go. So in a situation where the roof curves like this, normally a flat one would do something like that, create a gap where it curves. But because this rubber is flexible, I can just push down on both ends. And hopefully we sand this back correctly and don't over sand it, because I'm sick of filling and I'm sick of sanding. Now, in addition to using the rubber blocks, you don't want the sandpaper to go from end to end. You want some of the rubber exposed so that it follows the car as opposed to just sanding the whole time. So hopefully these two ends touch the car, and then the sandpaper only sands the filler to the exact spot that we want it. We'll see how this goes. Finished up with the filler for now. I might have to come back to it once it's painted. That might show up some more low spots and things like that, but for now wet sanding has seemed to have done the trick. Now wet sanding just stops any dust from kicking up and helps the sandpaper stay clog free, and then I'll just keep a permanent marker in my pocket. If I see any low spots, I'll circle them and then come back to them and fill them again until I'm happy. So there's just a few tricks that I've kind of picked up along the way. For now, because I'm going to start painting soon, I'm going to peel off all the old masking, give the car a good clean. I'm just going to wipe it down, I'm not going to wash it, and then clean the garage, just try to get as much dust out of here as possible, let it settle overnight, come back, mask up and start priming. That's it for this episode, guys. Got the first coat of primer on, mostly just to seal up the bare metal and to help me see what needs more sanding and filling. You kind of lose sight of what needs to be done when there's that many different colors on the car. So from here on out, I can just use some blade putty, and if things are really bad, a bit more of the body filler. We'll get this car looking perfect. Next episode, I'll just be wet sanding with some very fine grit sandpaper to get it as smooth as possible to help the vinyl stick as best as possible. And then I'll be vinyl wrapping. So make sure you like and subscribe, stay up to date, follow me on all the socials. Links are in the description. And we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for watching. This week on the show, we're getting the body work done on the Corolla so we can get it vinyl wrapped. This week on the show, I'm going to be undoing... Fuck. G'day, guys, on this. Fuck. Before we get stuck into it, I just want to take you down... Before we get stuck into it, I'm going to take you down... Before we get stuck into it, I'm going to take a trip down memory lane. Another year or so, the... don't know what I'm saying. Blackboard paint, which I rolled on the hood. This is bad. I'm happy with the car now. I've sanded back the filler enough times as to... I'm happy with all the sanding that I've done. I should be done with the filler for now. I probably might have to do... Probably might.